There's a special kind of thrill that only music fans know. It's that moment when you hear an album for the very first time, and about halfway through you start asking yourself a question: how on earth did I miss this? That was exactly my reaction the first time I sat down and listened to Crazy Rhythms by the Feelies. Now keep in mind, I've spent decades listening to alternative rock, most of my life. Bands like R.E.M, Placements, the Go-Betweens. So I figured I had a pretty good handle on the roots of that sound, but somehow this record has slipped right past me. I always knew it existed because I always saw artists that I liked reference the album, but I just never listened to it. I finally did. And when I finally heard it for the first time, I realized something almost immediately. The album feels like the DNA of alternative rock. It really does. So what I'm going to try to do today is walk through this album exactly the way I experienced it the first time, track by track, because the experience of discovering it is half the fun. And what I did was I listened to it, sometimes in the background, sometimes while I was doing something else, but I was aware it was going on, and I would just take notes of each of the songs. I'm not going to have any clips of the songs in this video just because of copyright stuff, but I think it'll be fun. So this band, the Feelies, they're from New Jersey. They were practically unknown when they recorded it. When they recorded Crazy Rhythms, the album, they weren't part of a big scene yet. They were just a group of musicians from Haladon, New Jersey. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Led by guitarist Glenn Mercer and Bill Million. Most of the band members were working regular jobs while developing their sound. And what made them unusual was their obsession with precision and repetition. And you see that a lot on this record. Instead of traditional rock songwriting, they spent huge amounts of rehearsal time just refining rhythmic guitar patterns and tightly interlocking parts. In other words, the Crazy Rhythms weren't accidental, they were meticulously rehearsed, and it shows. This is a tight record. And they took 6 years to make their second album. I think I had their third and fourth on cassette. I know I had two of their cassettes, but never heard this one. So, track number 1, The Boy with the Perpetual Nervousness. This album opens with that song, and right away the mood is neurotic. Like the first minute of that song, you can just tell this is going to be different and it's going to be fun. That's the only word that fit is neurotic. The whole thing feels anxious, twitchy, and slightly off balance. And what really jumped out at me the first time I heard it is there's no real chorus. Like a lot of these songs barely have a chorus, which is kind of the backbone of a song, I think. That's your hook. But this one just kind of moves forward in this nervous groove the entire time. It reminded me, strangely enough, of Screaming Blue Messiahs and their song Sweetwater Pools. And here's why. Not the sound, but the feel. It's like the whole song revolves around almost one note of tension. Like if you learn the bass line to Sweetwater Pools, it's just one note the whole way through. If you're a bass player, that's where you want to start. There's no big melodic payoff, no traditional chorus, just this rudimentary, almost chaotic rhythm pushing forward. And the whole time I'm thinking, okay, this band clearly is not playing by normal rock rules, and I loved it. Track number 2 is called Facila. I think that's how they pronounce it. Right out of the gate, this one hit me. The intro sounds like something from early Replacements, and something they could have written. It's loose, it's jangly, it's slightly chaotic, and then suddenly the song opens up into this ridiculously charming chorus out of the blue, and it caught me totally off guard, because suddenly it felt like something. You'll have to follow me on this one. It reminded me of the House Martins of all bands. I think they put out 2 records, right? And both of them were just nothing but bright, cheery pop. But it was that kind of bright, jangly, upbeat pop charm that I caught onto. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, this band can actually write a killer pop chorus when they want to. It's just they seem far more interested in building atmosphere and rhythm, and I don't blame them for that. It's neat. But that chorus, it's cool. It was really, really cool. So then we go to track 3, Loveless Love. This one really surprised me because it takes about 2.5 minutes before the vocals even show up. 2.5 minutes. That's a bold move. But the intro is such a slow, hypnotic build that I actually loved it. And the entire time I'm thinking the guys in R.E.M. this is what must have caught them. Not that they copied it, but the idea of that kind of slow burn guitar introduction, you can absolutely hear the influence. And then when the vocals finally come in, the vibe changes again. Suddenly it reminded me of the Go-Betweens, especially the songs where Robert Forster was singing. The Go-Betweens had two lead singers. One did like the pop stuff and one did the art stuff. Robert Forster was the art side, and that's what it sounded like. It was a little detached, a little literate, a little understated. And by this point, I'm starting to realize something. This one album seems to have influenced an entire generation of bands. Track 4, Forces at Work. This one we get another long intro. This time, the opening rhythm made me think of something totally different. It made me think of the B-52s, which I did not see coming. Seriously, listen to the percussion and tell me that doesn't feel like something the B-52s might have experimented with. And the Bs might have come before them, so maybe they're the ones who influenced. But this song might actually be my favorite on the whole record. And here's the weird thing. It barely has any lyrics. It's kind of like when Love Tractor quit doing nothing but instrumentals and started adding some vocals. They do like just a chorus, and that was it. This kind of reminded me of that. It's not an instrumental, really, but the vocals kind of became another instrument in the arrangement. They're just part of the rhythm, part of the texture. In the last 2 minutes of this song, I'm sorry, there's no way Peter Buck didn't hear something like this at some point. The guitar work in that final stretch, it feels like a blueprint. Maybe he heard the record. Maybe he heard someone influenced by the record. Pretty sure he heard the record. But one way or another, you can hear that connection really, really front and center. Now, Original Love is track number 5, and honestly, this is probably the one track on the record where my enthusiasm dipped just a little bit. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. But compared to everything around it, it feels a little too repetitive, which is crazy considering most of the songs on this are very repetitive. But this one, I don't know, it's different. It doesn't hit quite the same level as the other songs. If I were listening to this album again, top to bottom, this might be one I'd skip about a third of the way through. It's still good, it's just not as great. The track 6 is interesting because this is a Beatles cover, right? Everybody's got something to hide except me and my monkey, and we all know that. It's, originally by the Beatles, and this version is completely insane, and I mean that in the best possible way. It's barely recognizable as the same song. I knew it was a Beatles song, and I had to go back and listen to their version, and they don't sound anything alike. The Feelies crank the tempo. The percussion rattles like a box of loose flower parts. Everything feels frantic and wired. And I'm sitting there thinking, and this is something I almost never think when hearing a Beatles cover, because I love the Beatles, who doesn't? This might actually be better than the original, and that's extremely hard to pull off. I think Get It On, Bang a Gong by Power Station might be the only one that I think, and that's just because I loved that band. I think it's better. Most covers, man, it's hard to make it sound better or even the equal. I think they did that. Feelies did on this track. And track number 7, that's Moscow Nights. This is one of the strangest moments on this record. The song begins with 26 seconds of complete silence. Nothing. If I had been listening on CD instead of streaming, I probably would have thought the disc was messed up. And then suddenly the song opens up dramatically, just like some of the earlier tracks, building tension, building anticipation. And when the music finally kicks in about a minute and a half, we get something really interesting. The harmonies lean hard into 1960s pop, which is a completely different flavor from the nervous post-punk energy elsewhere on the record. The verses feel familiar, very Feelies sounding, but then there's a bridge with strange percussion and a guitar solo that's actually bigger and more dramatic than most of the rest of the album. And by this point, I'm just shaking my head thinking, how did I go this 46 years without hearing this record? Because this is another really, really good song. Track 8, this is Raised Eyebrows. Once again, the band does something a little unusual. The song runs about 3 minutes, but there's no vocals until the final minute, which is... Oh, they keep doing this to me, and I love it. When they do finally show up, they're not really delivering lyrics in the traditional sense. They're functioning again more like another instrument in the mix, which again reminds me of the approach that R.E.M. would use later, where the voice blends into the atmosphere rather than dominating it. I mean, you all remember early R.E.M. records. You couldn't understand what Michael Stipe was saying, and it wasn't just because he was kind of mumbly, and he was, but because Mitch Easter put it so built into the mix, I guess. It didn't stand out front, and I love that. I still do. And I love when bands do that. But the whole song just feels like a build towards that big moment. And when it finally arrives, it feels less like a chorus and more like just another layer in the rhythm machine. It was eye-opening. I loved this album. And finally, we arrive at the title track, Crazy Rhythms. And if the rest of the album hinted at the band's obsession with rhythm, this song puts it in center. The percussion layers pile up, shakers, tambourines, drums, everything locking into this hypnotic groove. The guitars weave in and out like gears turning inside a machine. It's really interesting. And by the time I get to this song, it suddenly clicked that this band is clearly not trying to write traditional rock songs. They're building rhythmic landscapes, which that sounds kind of out there, but that's how it feels. Everything's about tension, repetition, movement. And by the time the album ends, I had the same thought that a lot of people probably had back in 1980. This record feels like the beginning of something that bands like R.E.M., indie rock groups, and alternative bands would expand on for decades. And somehow, again, I knew about this album. I knew it was out there, and I just never picked it up. Somehow I just discovered it for the first time 46 years after it happened. And the Feelies still play today. I saw they're playing at the White Eagle Hall in New Jersey. They still play from time to time. I would absolutely love it. And I think one of the shows was this album, top to bottom. I'd love to see a video. I'd love to go, but I can't go. I'd love to see a video of that and to see how they pull all that off live, because it's a special record. And for those of you who mentioned in some of the comments, the Feelies are a band that we're pretty good. I had no idea, and thank you for that. So that was my first experience hearing it. And honestly, I'm still amazed it took me this long, because once you hear it, you start noticing its fingerprints all over rock history. And, sometimes the most influential records aren't the famous ones. They're just the ones that quietly sit there waiting for someone to discover them. And this one is absolutely worth discovering. If you've not listened to it ever, get some headphones and a cold drink, lay back and just let it soak in. If you've not listened to it in a long time, maybe go back and try it out again, because I think this one, it rewards multiple listenings. And I do think you'll see those fingerprints, like I told you about. B-52s, R.E.M., replacements. I thought it sounded like go-betweens. It was eye-opening. That's all I got for Crazy Rhythms by the Feelies. This one was this is the first time I've done this, just a track by track, and I think I'll do more of these going forward, along with my regular just band format stuff. But make sure you leave a like and a subscribe. The subscribe button, you're on YouTube right now, just hit it. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps the channel. And make sure to leave a comment. Are you a fan of this album? Have you always been a fan? And how did people who listen to this not just tell every friend, enemy, neighbor that they know to pick this thing up? Because apparently it sold like nothing. And that might be why it took them 6 years to come up with something different. And the newer stuff is fine, but it sounds much more traditional. More so than this, obviously. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. And make sure, always, as always, keep looking up, because that's where the answers are. Times are tough, and we're all going through it. So until the next time, you guys take care. We'll see you on the next one.